Hello, my name is Katie. I am a speech pathologist and professor of stuttering and fluency disorders at a graduate program in speech language pathology. And this video is for other people like me who share that same job title. So this video is about the pseudo-stuttering assignment that is often given in graduate student programs. And the reason I'm making this video in 2022 is because even though we've been assigning this activity for a very, very long time, there's been some pushback in recent years from graduate students saying that this assignment is unethical and should no longer be given. So if you're confused by this or struggling with how to address it, I'm making this with a little bit of a primer as to what might be going on, why your students are pushing back, potentially how you could reframe this assignment, and how to move forward with it. So I do have another version of this video that I made for graduate students, including my own graduate students, so I make them watch the other one, and they can watch this one too if they want. They're both public. But in that video, I basically say the two reasons that this assignment is important are, one, because the stuttering community has said it's important, and so if you are doing that thing where you're centering the voices of people with a lived experience, then you should do what they're telling you, and they're telling you they want you to do this assignment, so you should do the assignment. And number two is that our students need to be desensitized themselves to the experience of pseudo-stuttering, because they're going to have to pseudo-stutter with clients in order to do effective therapy if you're taking therapy outside of the therapy room. And obviously you should desensitize before you go work with an actual client. So now in your graduate course is a good time to do that. But why are they pushing back, or what is the general theme behind that? So the general thread of the pushback is that this is a form of a disability simulation exercise. That's a whole category of things, and that those are unethical or wrong. So another example of a disability simulation exercise would be putting earplugs in your ears and walking around for a day to see what it's like to be a person who is hard of hearing. The ethics of disability simulation exercises and sort of where they come from and how we view them nowadays is a very much larger conversation, and I won't go into that here for time. But an analogy, and I have seen students express concerns about this exact very thing, is that asking someone to, or telling someone to kind of, alter something relatively technical about themselves and then go out and pretend to have that in public is basically akin to wearing blackface, if you were trying to understand the experience of a person who is Black or African American. And so students feel really uncomfortable doing this and feel that it's very, very wrong and very, very harmful, and that is where the breakdown is coming from. Now, to the first point I make in the other video about this is an exercise that the stuttering community has said is important for SLPs to do. This is a bit tricky because for a long time, if you go back and look at old ISAD papers, the International Stuttering Association conference that's online, there's a lot written about how people who stutter, a lot of people who stutter, especially those who were training SLPs, wanted SLPs to do this because they thought that it was a good way to identify with what people who stutter go through. So literally a disability simulation exercise. And that was and still is, I think, for a lot of people, the view of and the value of this assignment. The reality is, in 2022, unless you have a lot of deep knowledge and ability to talk about this issue, I think it is safest to say that disability simulation exercises should not be done, especially in a field like ours where we are working with people with disabilities. We should not be promoting these. And so if that has been the primary reason that you've been giving this assignment, I would abandon that. And I would also just say, personally, there's a lot better reasons to do this assignment other than, find out what it's like to stutter. The way we find out about the stuttering experience, if you're not a person who stutters, is you listen to people who stutter. That's where you center the voices of the lived experience. But the reality is that the students need to learn this so that they can be able to be a successful clinician. That comes to another point about this exercise. There's been research about this exercise in recent years, which is so helpful when we're trying to figure out what is best practice. And very interestingly, the research shows that students who do this assignment, and they only have to stutter a couple of times, and I think very traditionally, this is that 3 times is often the sort of the standard formula. Go out and stutter to 3 different people or in 3 different scenarios, and then tell me what it's like. Actually had a more negative view of stuttering as a result of that. And there's a lot of different reasons for this, but one could be that it's such a minimal exposure, much like our clients who come to speech therapy because they're struggling and they have a lot of shame with stuttering. just that minimal exposure to stuttering is, oh my gosh, this is such a horrible experience. I never want to do this again. This is so terrible. So that may generate a lot of sympathy for people who stutter, but it doesn't actually serve our students very well in terms of becoming effective clinicians. What is required in order for this to be a useful exercise is that the students need to stutter a lot. They need to stutter over and over and over a very prolonged period of time. So one assignment where they do it 3 times is not going to cut it. They basically need to do this over the course of the whole semester, so that they're able to desensitize themselves to the experience. And that will allow them to be fully present in a moment where they are pseudo-stuttering, but they are pseudo-stuttering for the benefit of their client because of the nature of the therapy activity that they're doing. But desensitization, of course, takes a lot of work and a lot of exposure. So that is a real quick rundown of some things that may be going on if you're getting pushback from your students. If you are not very active in the stuttering community, or you're just not very comfortable working with stuttering or fluency disorders and you're just teaching the course because you drew the short straw, I do have another video for students as well, and I'll link to that in the comments, and so you can share that with your students. But this is something that has been very, very, very widely discussed in the stuttering community. And even if the clinical utility of it, from my opinion as an SLP, is like, yeah, it doesn't really help you be a better therapist, the fact is people who stutter have said and are continuing to say in 2022 as a response to this pushback from graduate students, what are you talking about? This is like the most valuable thing you could learn in your course. Please tell me you're not getting rid of it. That alone is reason for us to be continuing to do this assignment. We know students don't like to do this assignment, but if they're really passionate about centering those lived experiences and centering those voices, then they will do it, and they will go through the discomfort. So if you have questions, my email will be down below. You can feel free to email me, feel free to send a comment. I hope this was helpful. I'm also hoping to post in collaboration with a couple other folks who are very passionate about this topic, some additional resources and guidelines for professors who may be working with students and needing to assign this or read into this conversation. So thank you for joining, and all the best.